Hi, welcome to this week's edition of Loose Talk. Again, John, Dave and myself, we're going to look forward to our 5th European Cup final. But before that, look back over the playoff games in the Pro 14 last weekend. So lads, Ulster beat Connacht 21-13 and Munster beat Treviso, managed to fall over the line.
Jesus.
So obviously 3 Irish teams in the semi-finals.
Yeah, that's a positive for the IRFU and everybody involved. Munster you didn't get it wrong when you said they fell over the line. They were really lucky that if there was 2 passes there, if Treviso had held them, there was a 4-on-2 or something in one of them, and there was an almost certain try in the other if the guys had held the ball.
After
there was 2 butchered.
Didn't kick the ball away and give 10 metres.
10 metres, and there was 2 butchered droppers. The first one wasn't that difficult. I'd say Tommy Allen might have nailed it, but
I think you might have.
He was gone. The second one now was a little bit harder, in fairness, but the first one should have been nailed. So Treviso really beat themselves there, you'd have to say. Munster offered little enough in attack, which has been their Achilles heel. And now, I know we probably don't want to spend a huge amount of time talking about it, but 2 of their coaches are going west as well, leaving them in a state of chassis again.
Well, we have a question in actually from Brian Hughes on that subject. He says, is it possible that in his infinite misery, Thornley has actually gotten it right on the unholy mess that is Munster, with coaching departures, a talented 10 going north, and the tables turning on their talented youth being tapped up? Did I mention the semi-final exit?
Mm.
I think the results went as expected, but not as they were expected. Munster were poor against Treviso. Treviso, it has to be said, have been very good this year.
Absolutely.
To a certain extent, the narrative has all been about how poor Munster were, and I think that's a little unfair to Treviso. I think some recognition should go to what has been an excellent campaign for them. I'd say if you offered Kieran Crowley at the beginning of the season a playoff against Munster
and getting in for the first time by a legitimate...
I'd say he'd taken the hand off you. But as we saw, and as John said, I mean, there's been a lot of talk about the refereeing and stuff like that. You know, it happens. But at the end of the day, that game was in Treviso's gift, and they didn't take it.
Yeah.
There's not really a lot more to add about it, because I mean, the thing about Munster is that they're not even. I mean, Munster used to lose with style, and they don't even do that anymore. I mean, they don't win or lose with any kind of great. There used to be a thing about Munster. I mean, you watch the Munster team, whether you liked them or you didn't like them, or whether they won or whether they lost, you always admired them for their Munsterness. This team doesn't seem to have that.
If you think back, 15 years ago, and if they lost the European semi-final and we lost the European semi-final, we went out with a whimper and they went out with a bang.
Yeah.
And, as you say, they scraped over the line. Okay, admittedly, Treviso are a far improved team, but, they're not world beaters. They're a very spirited team, and they're probably better than the sum of their parts. But, you know what I mean? If they were playing Leinster in a semi-final of the Pro 14 in the RDS, you can really I'd only see one winner in that game.
Yeah, I don't think it'd be close.
Might be different now when we play Munster in a couple of weeks' time. But we'll talk about that in the future. But Munster, I'm sure, will up their game. But as you said, Dave, they are in this constant state of turmoil. I mean, I don't know how many coaches they've had in the last 10 years.
Since Kidney left, they never settled with McGahan. He had been playing some lovely rugby at times, but they never liked it. McGahan ball was the first of the balls.
Yeah.
They had Penny ball, they had everything ball. They didn't even turn on Foley,
They turned on Foley, then they brought in Razzie to kind of help him out to do a Lancaster for him.
They've also got their coaching appointments out of step, where obviously poor Al Anthony Foley, was taken from them. But since then, it seems that every time they get new backroom staff, the head coach changes, or every time they get a new head coach, the backroom. But
that's one thing that strikes me quite. I think it's quite a funny thing that rugby is a bit different than soccer, insofar as when a new coach comes in, all of the backroom staff seem to go. and then he brings in who he wants to be as his assistants, rather than the club or the union appointing his assistants for him.
Yeah, I was looking at, say, Liverpool against Newcastle there at the weekend. I think it was last Friday night. And the Newcastle bench, all the coaching staff, was basically the Liverpool bench when Rafa was in charge at Liverpool. In football, as you say, they tend to move as a unit.
Yeah.
I mean, Mick McCarthy, wherever he goes, he brings Terry Connor with him, for example. And that doesn't happen so much in rugby. The problem with Munster is it's hard to know what's going on there, because obviously you've got the spin, you've got the rumour, and then you've got the truth, which is probably somewhere in between. Well, you've got a situation where coaches have been brought in on top, ahead of other guys, without other guys knowing about it. I mean, we saw this kind of before. I mean, we saw what happened with Anthony Foley when basically the Erasmus appointment was announced in an embargoed press release before he was due to give a press conference as the head coach. And this guy was been brought before Foley was due to, and this guy was been brought in above him, so as director of rugby, you know. So you had that happen, and then you've got the Van Graan thing, and now you've got something similar repeating itself, where you've got two guys who had contract offers, or there were contracts on the table for them anyway, and there's talk of guys, whoever they are, whether it's Robert Howley or whatever, been brought in above them. It's very
it's a mess.
It is.
Or it seems to be.
They don't seem to be all heading in the one direction.
And that Rob Howley one seems bizarre as well, when you think that he came under fierce criticism from, say, O'Brien. You know,
Sean O'Brien put the boot in.
No, he did, but like,
rightly or wrongly.
Well, rightly or wrongly, but that's how he felt. You know,
Absolutely.
and like I think he was at the ploughing championship. He was kind of interviewed by Off the Ball, and so it was quite an in-depth. It wasn't just a throwaway remark. You know what I mean?
No, he was quite
he got
he
the
was quite
boot well
comprehensive in how crap Robert Howley was.
Yeah. I think he probably
and specific criticisms of him.
Yeah.
In particular, when like his lack of structure and how the training didn't match up to what they needed to be done, and then he kind of went on to double down by saying that it was actually the two out halves next Saturday, Farrell and Johnny, that
pulled them through it.
That basically took over Vance coaching. Yeah, it was a fairly damning indictment of him, and one that hasn't been comprehensively denied either. And then you look at the Welsh, attacking play. What Wales are is you could call Wales any number of things, but a swashbuckling attacking side is not one of them.
I think they scored the least number of tries in the Six Nations this year. So.
Yeah, but that's never been Munster's game either. Swashbuckling.
No,
has never been.
Buckles are very rarely swashed down. Munster. I mean, Rob Penny came in there as well, and he got done for.
He tried to get some buckles swashing.
Yeah, well, he tried to change the Munster game, because the Munster game, circa what people considered Munster rugby and what people wanted to go back to after McGann, was rugby that was never going to win anything, and it was rugby that was never even going to get you to the level that they're at now, because it was antediluvian stuff. And they were trying to develop the game. Now, maybe Erasmus and in particular McGann have been, or Van Graan have been more politic in how they've gone about changing Munster style, because they have changed Munster style. But at the same time, they have kind of gone back to where they were 5 years ago with what Rob Penny was trying to do.
And no doubt,
have they though?
Well, they have. I mean, you look at they are trying to expand the game. They mightn't be very good at it, but they are trying to do it. They've gone away from a forwards-based game because they don't really have the forwards to do that anymore. You can't play the kind of game that Munster used to play up until 2008 anymore. You just can't.
But like, the world has moved on as well.
That's what I'm saying.
Nobody can play that game, even if you had.
But there was a move. There was a belief in Munster that if they went back to that style of rugby, and that was kind of the wave that Anthony Foley surfed into that job. If they could go back to Munster rugby, that they could start winning again, and of course they never could.
Well, if you got that exact team from that one in 2008 to come onto the pitch today, exactly the same age, with obviously the laws of rugby have changed, but taking all that into account, you wouldn't win much. You'd get to semi-finals probably.
But the thing people often forget about that team is that actually that had a talented bunch of backs. If you go back into that team with, say, Trevor Halstead and Rua Tupoki and Dougie Howlett and all those guys,
there were a few guys in there.
And Rog, who was a decent, who was I mean, we like to slag him off. He was a pretty good out half.
Absolutely.
You know? And you could change, and Tomas O'Leary before he got injured, that team could play a variety of ways. I mean, we saw it against Ospreys in the quarterfinal in 2009.
Referred back to that a few times recently.
There was a lot of buckles swashed in that game.
There was 6 tries. I seem to remember.
But like, are they going to just, is there going to be another clamour for? I know O'Gara, there's rumours that he's going to La Rochelle for 3 years. Don't know how true or untrue that is, but is there going to be calls for?
Paulie and Raj. I mean, come on, the dream team.
Or even Jason Holland's coaching down in New Zealand. Maybe he should come in and save the.
The Paulie and Raj show has got to be clamoured for. Whether it's ever going to happen.
But no doubt it will be clamoured for,
Of course.
I'd say Paulie and Raj are both far too intelligent to take on Munster at this point in time. They're going to want somebody to go in, take all the pain, fix the academy, and then they can come in.
Yeah.
Because there's no point in them going in now.
I don't think it's the academy is the problem so much anymore. It's what happens after the academy to the players.
There's a problem with player progressions. Whether
Whether
it's from school and club into the academy, or whether it's from academy into the senior team. But player progression is an issue for them.
Fellas like Bill Johnson moving on.
Well, Van Graan's coming in and cleaning house, whether it's some players that he doesn't like or doesn't like the look of, or for whatever reason, he's getting rid of the fellas that he's kind of inherited.
Yeah.
And perhaps he did something similar and they've just spun it because Felix and Jerry have, Munster legends.
Done as well.
And 100 caps each of them for Munster and Irish and so on. And 10 years or more service with the club that they feel they kind of have to spin it nicely.
Well, in fairness, that was my first take on it when I first saw the news, especially that line about them having contracts and deciding not to take them up. That it was a case of, right, we're letting them go and we're going to spin it that they're going of their own accord and that's fine, rather than the fact that maybe that the coach wanted to clear house, both on the playing staff and the coaching staff. But we're going to give these guys, because of what they've done, we're going to give them the benefit of them being able to say that they walked out, or not walked out, that they left under their own steam.
Anyway, we're in danger of spending the whole time
14 minutes on Munster.
We haven't even talked about Ulster and Connacht yet, never mind the important match of the week.
Well, Ulster and Connacht, I think that scoreline, did it flatter Ulster?
Perhaps.
A little bit, yeah. I would have thought so. Yeah.
I missed the last 20 minutes.
I would have thought I thought it did flatter them a little bit. I mean, I thought they were always going to win. They always looked the better side.
Yeah, I agree.
Because they're Ulster have turned around quicker. McFarland's done a great job up there. And they turned around quicker. This time last year, if you look at Blues Talk this time last year, we're talking about what an absolute omni-shambles
they were,
that Ulster are, that they're a basket case, that they're this, that, and the other. And it's true. But what they've done in the interim is they got a new head coach in, whose appointment was a touch omni-shambolic. But he's come in, he's brought through a number of promising young players. A number of guys from their academy, they're not necessarily Ulster born and bred, but they've come from the Ulster Academy, let's not forget.
Eric O'Sullivan,
Nick Timoney.
He was a loose head himself.
Balakoon, Kernahan, Lowry. They brought in a guy, obviously Billy Burns, who's Irish qualified. So they've done all this. They've kind of, to a certain extent, I'd say they've redeemed themselves in the eyes of the IRFU by doing it without going out and spending, big bucks on foreign import. Well, they brought Irish guys through.
They look a bit weak at 10. Burns is okay.
Yeah, he's okay.
He's not rubbish by any means. He's good, but he's not great. He's a good player, not a great player.
Yeah, he's steady.
He's steady. The other lad hasn't got much of a look in. The under-20s guy, what's his name? McPhillips. Whether it's probably going to be a bit of a joust between him and Bill Johnson. But Bill Johnson looked fairly handy anytime I saw him. And he's more likely to get time up there, given the amount of 10s they have that are top notch, and given the way they develop players generally.
Am I right in saying that he was the first choice out half in the under-20s and Joey Carberry got the job in the Junior World Cup because of Johnson's injury, or was that the following year?
I'm not sure, Dave. I'm not sure, but
he was the main man
in the World Cup. He missed the Six Nations.
It was one of them, yeah. Chance. But he was the main man. Like he was.
Was it McPhillips that actually?
It was McPhillips. You're right.
Phillips got in because.
Yeah. No, you're 100% right. But Johnson was very highly regarded under 20, extremely highly regarded. He was, the next big thing to come out of the Munster Academy, or the first big thing to come out, and currently the last big thing to come out. But
their scrum half, their current scrum half,
that was nearly poached by Leicester.
Well, Who knows? A friend of mine actually was down in Dingle for a few days over the bank holiday, and he said he bumped into Leo Cullen down there. So we weren't sure whether or not he was poaching JJ Hanrahan or
Timmy O'Donnell. Maybe. The thing is, I mean, all the papers are saying he's going to Ulster, but the thing that puzzled me was this is what at the last week Andy Friend did a press conference and said, well, we have 2 IQ and 1 NIQ coming in, and we'll be announcing them next week.
Yeah.
And that came like a couple of days after Munster had announced that various different guys were going. And I actually thought Bill Johnson was going to be one of the guys going to Connacht, because Connacht released Craig Ronaldson. Or did he retire? One or the other. Anyway, so they're a bit skinny themselves at out half. So I thought that might be a guy. I thought he might have been going to Connacht.
They're definitely getting a 10 in from somewhere.
Yeah. So I mean, but Connacht, Andy Friend has done a good job building, because he's brought in guys. From around the place. Kyle Godwin went well. Tom Daly went well in there. Obviously, he's got Tom Farrell who was there, but he's done a good job. He's made a very competitive place for the number 9 shirt. You know, although Marmion seems to have come back in.
And he's brought on Carty.
A huge amount, yeah.
And like you mentioned Ulster being kind of omni-shambles. I don't think Connacht were that bad, but they seem to be.
They had a bad year.
They had a very bad year, and they, your man was like toxic with the players and
a little bit.
Like
with the media for sure. I don't know.
Well, and the players as well. They didn't like him, and they stopped playing for him, and mutiny, and they got rid. But he's kind of turned the fortunes of them around, and it looks like that Connacht have bought into him as much as they did Pat Lam back when he was.
Perhaps,
well, actually, it's funny you mentioned Pat Lam. We're talking about Jack Carty. One of the things I was critical of Pat Lam was, I said, I mean, obviously they played the rugby, they played and all that kind of stuff. But I remember saying it at the time that he's doing Jack Carty's international chances no good whatsoever, because playing the way Jack Carty played for Connacht, he was never going to play international rugby, because he just can't do that at international level. But since Friend has come in, Carty has been, he's playing a different kind of game.
He's been a friend to Carty.
He's been a friend to Carty, but he's playing a more balanced game, where it's not just jouer all the time. Sometimes you actually do have to, have a tactical appreciation, and he's shown that he has, and he's shown he can act upon it.
And he got into the Irish squad ahead of Ross Byrne.
Yeah, and he was a good doggy.
Well, so it sets up two interesting semi-finals, which we will obviously play in a couple of weeks' time. We'll talk about them next week. We have something else to talk about this week. So we play our 5th final.
Yep.
It's Sarri's 4th final.
Mm-hmm.
They've probably been the 2 top teams for the last few years in Europe.
Yeah.
Well, we've 2 questions on Twitter that might start us off on this. Yeah. I'm sure which is going to be an entertaining and informative chat. Rugby Spotlight asks, despite the media trying their very best to make out Leinster will face the greatest team in Europe, which actually, in fairness, I don't see that happening at all. I feel Leinster are a level above Saracens in terms of overall ability. Tough battle in store, no doubt, but I think Leinster will win. 26-15. What scoreline do we predict? We'll do that at the end of the show. And James Murphy says same team as the semi-final guys, which we will discuss as well. But just to go back, the English press have been very even-handed in terms of this, because anything I've said, some of them favour Saracens, some of them favour Leinster, but they're all saying that it's too close.
Titanic battle.
Yeah, Titanic battle is the phrase that's often
but
used.
We kind of I think we put Saracens up on a pedestal, or other teams to lose as well.
It's natural.
I suppose it is natural, and maybe it's trying to make ourselves less arrogant and underdogs. But if you look at the records of the 2 teams, right? So
they've never beaten us.
That's 3. So we played them 3 times, but some of those matches you can kind of discount. They were a very team in their formative years.
They were the coming team.
They were that was nearly 8-9 years ago.
They didn't actually come, John. That
was 9 years ago.
But if you look at, say, just even go back to the pool stages, right? Look at Sarri's group. They won 6 from 6 for sure.
Yep.
But they beat Cardiff, Glasgow. Okay, Glasgow are a good side, but they beat Cardiff, who lost 11 of their 21 Pro 14 matches.
The going team.
Your old team. And they, Leon was in that group. Now Leon are 3rd in the
Who?
in the top 14, but they won. They actually accumulated no points in the 6 matches, not even a losing bonus point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that and it actually, what you're saying there, it's something I noticed, and it annoys me as well. I don't know. somebody was talking about who should we pick to cope with Liam Williams. Fuck that. Who should Liam Williams be most worrying about coping with himself? You know, because these are guys who are on a similar level.
Well, he's a right winger, isn't he? So
yeah. But the point I'm making is, why should we?
Probably should be worried about James Lowe.
Why should we have to pick someone to cope with? Why should either team pick a player to cope with their opposite number? When in reality, each team should go out and should be attempting to go out and imposing their game plan on the opposition, and let the opposition worry about them. And I'm saying this from both a Leinster and a Saracens point of view, that the real battle would be the team not the team that limits the opposition the most. The winner would be the team that imposes the most of its game plan on the opposition.
Well, yeah, absolutely, but you can't ignore who you're playing, and you can't ignore their threats.
No, you can't.
Yeah, but they're not. No more than our players are. They're not gods.
Exactly.
These aren't Asgardians or Olympians.
This isn't like
they're men.
This isn't an unbeaten All Blacks team.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they've lost 5 matches in the Premiership. You know what I mean? Like the Premiership is not all that.
We've lost 5 matches in the last 10 minutes.
Sure, but look at our team that we're putting out.
I know.
You know, but they've lost 5 games in.
But you're comparing the Premiership and the Pro 14, so you know.
Okay.
They probably put out shit teams for a lot of the ones they lost.
You can probably get away with it more in the Premiership because it's an inferior league.
But they have relegation, so they all have to try every week. Really
but
try
like,
really hard.
They're 4 points behind Exeter, and they beat Exeter at the weekend. So, do you know what I mean? Like that narrowed the gap. So they were quite considerable distance behind Exeter.
In
Munster beat Exeter.
Yeah.
And drew with them.
Well, that's the old Team A, Team B, Team C conundrum that you get in rugby all the time. Team A beats Team B.
But like, what I'm trying to say is that just people come in and, you know, we hear so many arguments of, Leinster must be or an Irish team must be inferior to a foreign team because of, look at all those guys who they're on the England team, and the England team beat Ireland in the Six Nations. But like, we've won the last 3 previous encounters with England.
There's a lot more of that Irish team on the Leinster team than there. Even though there are a huge amount of Saris on the English team, it's still not as big a dominance as Leinster have over the Irish team for obvious reasons. Because you know they've got 12 teams over there and we've got 4. So,
one thing I would be concerned about though is I wouldn't say it's our weakness on the bench, but our lack of experience on the bench.
It's a lack of experience.
That's a big one.
I mean, the thing I'm concerned about is that Saris are a really fucking good team. The thing that Saracens should be concerned about is that we're a really fucking good team. Now we certainly have a lack of experience on the bench, but there's no lack of quality.
The bench is a bit of a problem. A lot of you probably do remember, and I think it was about 2014, Toulon came over to play us in a group game in Lansdowne Road. They weren't brilliant. They ground out a win, but what won it for them was the lads they could bring on off the bench, and we were bringing on, you know, people who were down the food chain a bit. They had a full 23 stacked with international players, luminaries. And Saris are a little bit the same. Like,
are they? And is their bench actually much better than ours? Apart from the column names, the column inches, their names are attached. Are they actually any better?
In parts, like, you know.
Like what parts?
Hugh O'Sullivan.
And who's their replacement? Scrum half.
Is it Wigglesworth?
Yeah. Okay. Wigglesworth's a good player.
Well, he's an England international.
He's an England international.
Whereas Hugh Sullivan could well be an Irish international in the future.
But that's what I'm saying.
He probably he has maybe 15 Leinster caps.
But that's what I'm saying. The difference is experience. It doesn't necessarily mean quality.
No, it doesn't. But you need those. You need the experience in a big 40 or 50,000 people in the stadium. In the pressure of playing in a final, in the pressure of playing against a team as good as has.
But I mean, you look at other areas. I mean, who are we going to have on the bench? Jack McGrath?
I don't think so.
Maybe not.
But say Rhys Ruddock perhaps. Rhys Ruddock perhaps.
Rhys Ruddock
captained Ireland.
Rhys Ruddock is back.
Max Deegan, World Young Player of the Year.
You're going to have
Dave Kearney with his 2 Six Nations and was 3 Heineken Cups. I mean, there's a lot of really good players. Even Ross Byrne, the much maligned Ross Byrne, the original bad dog. I mean, he's got a huge amount of experience over the last 2 years.
I wouldn't be down on Ross Byrne. I think he's an advantage. However, you've got, like James was asking the question about unchanged 15. I've heard that from a few different media sources is that they're going for an unchanged 15, and possibly Rhys Ruddock will be the one to come in. That's a fairly decent, like if you've got either Rhys Ruddock starting or Scott Farley starting at 6 and the other one to come on off the bench, that's fairly decent. Then you've got Deegan to come on, that's impact. Their front row possibly might edge the Andrew Porter, if he's on form, will edge anybody.
Jack McGrath looked to be back on form against Ulster.
Yeah, well, will they play him is the question.
Why wouldn't they?
Don't know. He hasn't been in favour.
He hasn't been in favour, but he came in against Ulster. He played very, very well. He looks to have regained a certain amount of mojo.
I'd play him. He's got the old international thing about, class is permanent. He's certainly got the class, and it would be great for him to go out like Jordy Murphy did, lifting a big trophy.
Just to let you know, lads, I don't know if you've noticed, but their players can be off form as well.
Of course. I mean, obviously.
Yeah.
But
one thing, like Mako,
they have
only played one game since.
That's right.
I think
Sean Cronin's dodgy for us, though.
Yeah.
They have a full deck pretty much.
Yeah.
We've no Dan Levy. We've a couple, Adam Byrne, who may have got near the 23. There's nobody really, unless Ruddock or Sean Cronin doesn't make it. There's nobody else. So that's a great thing about the game. Actually, is that both sides are going full bore at each other. There aren't massive injuries that are going to be the deciding factor on either side. Dan Levy, perhaps the only real massive impactful player, and Van der Fleer as well. Who actually, did I hear Van der Fleer was back in training?
Back training, yeah.
Don't know if he's going to make it this weekend.
No, I don't think so. But next week he
might be up for the semi.
Might be in for a quick semi.
Carney or Larmour?
A fullback?
Yeah.
Carney.
They're going to be targeting Larmour for sure, and on the wing that's one thing. But if he was at fullback, that Saracens tactic we spoke about the last few weeks, where they do the Gaia thing, where they tap the ball,
break the ball.
Yeah, that's a model for catching someone
Henshaw
like Larmour.
has actually used those that phrase, breaking ball.
Yeah.
Well, he played
He's a Gale. Fear Gale.
He played Gael for Westmeath, as far as I know, and that's like
somewhere, John, who's watching this, has playing GAA bingo now, so he's ticked that one off.
Yeah.
Well, the thing about it is that if you're playing GAA, if you hit the ball, it doesn't matter whether your player's in front of you or behind you. They're not offside. In rugby, they are offside, so it's got to come back. But we've discussed it last week. But I think it's a very hard one to combat, because the only way you can combat it is blocking. Try and block the guy who's coming to
just
support.
Kick the letter off it. Kick it.
Volley it
into their face.
Yeah, we could do that as well.
Fly hack through. Kick anything that moves. It might be the ball.
Yeah, kick ahead, any head. I think you just have to take every ball in its merits, and then when you see what's happening, when you see how they're set up, then you set up accordingly. But I mean, I don't think this game's going to come down to kicking. I mean, you've got two of the most evenly matched teams I can remember in a European Cup final. You've got a situation where you've got internationals everywhere, Lions everywhere, All Black, whatever you have in yourself.
They've no New Zealand players.
Yeah, there's no New Zealand players there. Yeah,
that's the South Africans.
Yeah,
we're the ones with the Kiwis.
Yeah, so you've got world class players everywhere. Like, it's going to be. I mean, it's going to be a momentous match. It'll probably be rubbish. It'll probably end up 6-9 one way or another.
It doesn't matter though.
But it doesn't matter, and that's the thing.
It ended up 12-9 last year. So
that's the thing about finals rugby. It all that matters is you win by one.
And what time did we get into the lead? Was it 78 minutes?
Yeah. That's all that matters. That's the thing. So it's going to be very, very tight. You see, like I was saying about Leinster players are really, really good, and the thing about that is the Saracens players are also really, really good.
They don't have any fear though, Saracens. Though maybe a little bit of fear crept into Racing towards the end.
They don't have.
They have experience. They've been there, done that. They've won it twice, and they've also played in big final matches. In the Aviva Premiership or whatever.
Yeah.
Aviva.
Plus, they don't like once they get ahead of you, they're an absolute bastard of a team to try and claw back, because they'll just kick 3, 6, 9, and if they're 8 points ahead of you, they get a penalty on the halfway line, they'll kick it over the Fredler will throw that over the
So
bar.
exactly the same way as Leinster would do it.
Yeah, but
That's the thing. Like they're so very, very similar.
But today I was just going
mentality-wise.
Like we were, we obviously we had our little debate and chat about Munster, but like since Munster won their last trophy, I think we've won 7 trophies.
Probably.
We've been
We've lost count. Who cares?
and we've been in a number of finals as well. So you're playing at these really, really high intensity, pressurized situations where, there's nearly everyone, with the exception of 1 or 2 fellas that we mentioned, have been in that environment before. When they come out, they know what to do on the day of a final. It's in their blood. That that they've been exposed to it.
That's
whereas
true.
Other sides, maybe even Munsters, haven't had the opportunity to play in those finals since that 2011. I think there've been one Pro 14 final.
Moura scored a 96-minute winner, and Spurs scored 3 second-half goals, and they're through to the European Cup final.
Are they?
No.
But
I was up for Ajax.
But that's actually one thing we were saying about the Munster Saracens semi-final, was about how the advantage Munster have over virtually every other team, except for maybe 3 or 4 teams, is their mindset and their mentality and their mental strength. Saracens, and one of the problems they had with Saracens, apart from Saracens being better at rugby, is that Saracens have all that mental strength too.
Mm-hmm.
Leinster as well are the other team that are, to paraphrase Jurgen
The full of
Klopp,
Brazilians.
mentality monsters.
Resilience. Sorry.
Resilience. But Leinster and Saracens, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, Saracens do have all that. They've all that mental process, that strength, that experience, and that resilience. And Leinster have that. You see, that's why this game is so close. There's literally no area almost where you could slip a fag paper until we see them on the pitch.
You're talking about experience of finals. Like Leinster managed to lose the first 3 finals in the Bagners League, Rabo, whatever the hell it has been called. And they went and won the next 2, and they've been.
But don't forget that they lost those matches a week after playing in Heineken Cup
Yeah.
finals. Like Lancaster was quoted at a press conference this week as saying they couldn't have asked for a better build-up to it, having no pressure on them for the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and having no match last weekend. Saracens, as you saw on the other side, they went out and they fielded pretty much a seconds. So they obviously realised that rugby, you need your rest. You need to be in tip-top condition. You can't
no better
play
team to prove it than Northampton in that 2011 final, who had pretty much played the same 15 nearly for every match of the season, and eventually caught up with them.
And then about 8 weeks later, they played the same 15 in Donnybrook.
No fucking sympathy for them. But so that's. I mean, the Leinster first team was put in aspic, or put in aspic
bubble wrap
after the second Wasps game. It was taken out of bubble wrap for the Ulster game, put back in bubble wrap, taken out again for the Toulouse game. And I'd say that since Toulouse, there's been those guys have done nothing except this match. Absolutely nothing.
Of course. This is Sexton's 10th match, I heard. In fact, it was in Jason's.
Yeah.
Jason said it was it's his 10th game of the season.
No, Leinster match.
Leinster game of the season, yeah. Like, that's pretty incredible. Like, he normally plays at least 16. I know he's had injury problems, but that's a pretty, what would I say, well-rested Johnny Sexton. And hopefully over any niggles that he had during the Six Nations. So
Like he played, this will be his 3rd match since that Munster match on Christmas, or Stevenson's Day, or whatever it was, 27th or whatever, of December, 5 months ago.
Yeah.
It'll be his 3rd Leinster match.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Who do you think he is, Sean O'Brien? Sean O'Brien's probably played 3 times that amount.
Well, the thing about, we've kind of tried to make it scientific and say, well, it's going to be so tight and we can't figure out how we can separate the 2 sides, and when it comes down to things that all the experience that the players do have. But one thing, there's going to be a huge emotional high riding on someone like Sean O'Brien, who is one of the, again, I think it was Lancaster that was quoted this week as saying there's 5 leaders in the team, and he mentioned them, and he's one of them. And it's going to be obviously his last European Cup match, his last final, possibly his
ever
one of his exactly one of his last games for Leinster, and they want to obviously go out and I think Ryan was mentioning it as well, that it was going to be a big deal for them to try and use O'Brien's last European Cup game for them as a motivational factor, you know. So like they will sort of try and marry the science with a bit of emotion as well.
You have to. You can't go out there just purely with science, and you can't go out there just purely with emotion. But striking the right balance. But I think that you know, it's too close to call. Even the bookies aren't calling it. Like,
depends where the bookies are from.
Huh?
It depends where the bookies are from.
Are Surrey still 1 point favourites? That's the last I heard of it, which is a week ago at least. Is that still the case?
I have no idea. No idea.
You a betting man, Jason?
No.
No. Okay. No, nobody has a clue about betting.
But one difference between the sides might be our referee.
Yeah.
You don't agree, Dave?
No, I think it's a lot of bollocks.
Laissez-faire.
Yeah.
He's Mr. Laissez-faire.
Yeah, but it's not like we've never been reffed by him before. It's not like we haven't been reffed by him recently. It's not like we haven't been reffed by him against Saracens. I mean, to be honest with you, if he hadn't actually refereed that Munster Saracens game, we wouldn't be hearing about this stuff. But
I don't know. I think that's a bit too flippant, really, because referees can be the changing of games, and it's their interpretation. Like if you look even last week, you know, some referees would have ignored the ball being kicked away, right? The Munster, but it was a very experienced referee who generally has, you know, refereed very big games for Leinster that Leinster have won. Occasionally, he, you know, like the match against New Zealand in 13,
the infamous scrum,
like
the Jack McGrath penalty.
But there's small things can change games. So for instance, you know, he came back and he said, no, move the ball. You can move the ball 10 meters forward, which moved it from 70 meters, from 60 meters to 50 meters, which meant that through an opportunity to win. Yeah. So it's small things that can change. Now the player shouldn't have kicked the ball away, for sure, but still it was the interpretation of the ref.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, the ref can play a big part in it, but you should be smart enough to take the ref out of it.
Yeah,
is probably what Dave's point is, I'm guessing. And you know, both teams have played quite a number of times with him as ref.
Yeah.
And yeah, hopefully he's not the deciding factor. Hopefully the team's decided on the day.
But like again, just going back to say
this is just pre-whinging.
No, but just going back to the final against Northampton, you know, it was interpretation of the scrum. If you remember, they'd absolutely milled us in the scrums, and it was the referee's interpretation, and it was very good coaching by Feek that came in and adjusted the way that we attacked the scrum.
Yeah.
In order to not be penalised by the referee.
One might actually suggest that it was actually relatively poor preparation by Leinster coming into that match, because referees don't on a whim decide they're going to referee a certain way a certain day. They referee the way they referee. So there's plenty of tape out there of how Roman Pot referees a scrum. We really should have been more cognizant of it.
Maybe so, yeah.
And that's what happened at half time. They kind of refocused. But anyway, yeah, I mean, it'd be if they were talking about some mad referee,
but it's a fluid,
like Steve Walsh or Jaco Paper or one of these guys who is, you know, wired to the moon. You'd understand. But it's Jerome Garces. I mean, okay, he may be a little laissez-faire at the breakdown, but that means he's laissez-faire at the breakdown for both teams. So, you know, make hay, boys. It's not like...
Yeah. Well, we've been accused, we have...
It's not like he's going to decide that we're going to lose because we're cheating Irish bastards, to quote Steve Walsh. You know, it's...
No, fair enough. But, you know, we have been accused this season of not playing referee. Of, well, they're doing it, why aren't we doing it? We've done that this season.
Yeah, I'm not convinced that we've as many, especially with Dan Levy missing, we have as many and Van der Fleer as well, many turnover experts as we could have, and perhaps they have a few more. Vunipola is good at turning over. Both Vunipolas are good at turning over ball. There's quite a lot of turnover specialists in there. I mean, they don't have a real... they don't have, what's his name, Curry or what's the lad with no neck, plays for Bath? Underhill. Yeah. They don't have Underhill, but you know, they're all very good over the ball. That could be, depending on how the breakdown goes with Mr. Garces, that could be an interesting area to focus on. And games are always won and lost at the breakdown, like pretty much.
We're pretty handy over the ball ourselves. I mean, you've got Tyke Furlong there, who's really good over the ball.
True.
You've got Sean O'Brien, who's pretty good over it. Jack Coleman. If Scott Farley starts, as it looks likely, he's pretty good, and that's without going into the likes of Robbie Henshaw when it goes a bit wider. So that doesn't particularly worry me. I think that we'd be. Yeah, obviously you're going to do a bit of research and ref, and you're going to examine how he plays, and you're going to a certain extent, temper what you do towards that. But I'd say there'd be a lot more work done on how Saracens are going to play than how Jerome Garrett says. The only thing is that Johnny Sexton knows he hates him. But now he has to talk to him.
He is the captain, of course.
Yeah. Although I think that was a bit more tongue-in-cheek than people made out at the time,
Well, we'll see. Probably not a good precedent to be setting with the ref. That you're going to come to. They always come back around.
Do we have any more tweets or quotes or?
Yeah, we have a couple. Let me see now. Okay, so Sean Smith actually asked, "How do we ref the ref?" Gareth says, "Going to have a big influence in this game. We need to be on his good side. You just play straight rugby, and refs always like that." Mick Thompson, what area of the game do you feel would be most important for Leinster in order to win the drive for 5?
My big worry is negating their GA tactic. I just think they're going to put pressure on somebody. England did it. Saris do it a lot. England made great headway, obviously targeting poor old Robbie Henshaw, as you mentioned earlier. Are they going to target low, or are they going to target? Who are they going to target? Who knows? Probably all of them. Probably not Rob Kearney, because he seems to be. He seems to know where to be. In the same way as Alex Good does for them. They're both very good fielders of the ball. But that's my worry. That breakdown, maybe not.
Well, let's just hope our coaches aren't stupid enough to pick Robbie Henshaw fullback then.
Well, they're not. We're pretty sure of that. Where is the game going to turn? They're not super handy in the scrum, are they?
They're
confident.
Functional. They're functional.
They're good. Munster had a go at them in the scrum.
I mean, there's no top English side that isn't a good scrummaging side, or isn't at least a functional scrummaging side, and that's what Saracens are. They're not very destructive, but I'm not sure we really are as well. We don't really go for teams in the scrum. We just want to look at the ball, and they're kind of the same.
Well, one place that I do think we can make hay is our 10, 11, 12, 13, and I deliberately put in the 11 there with Mr. Lowe. Like, there's some serious amount of creativity that can happen there with those guys. He shows up in midfield. He comes up. I've seen him on the other wing at times. He's all over the place. So that kind of game breaking could do it for us.
If he starts, Maitland's game pretty well.
Yeah, and keeping the like of Liam Williams quiet is another. I mean, that guy can slice through. He kind of defies the laws of physics, because when you look at him standing still, you go, oh, that guy's a rugby player, and then you see what he does, how he slices through people on a counter attack.
And he, in fairness, he is the form rugby player in Europe this season. Probably
he's in great form. Yeah. So I'd be worried about him. If we can negate him and get a bit of creativity going with, like, our 10, 12, 13 is cracking.
Yeah,
it really is. And if we can do a bit of damage there. Because you've Henshaw that can do the blunderbuss that Brad Barrett can do, but he can also do all the fancy dance shit as well.
For me, that's a significant
area. And he can release
is 12,
Ringer
13.
outside him.
It's the one area of the pitch I feel that one team has an advantage over the other, and obviously us with Henrose and Ringshaw, with Henshaw and Ringrose. I think that's the one area of advantage, clear advantage that one of the teams has over the other.
You saw the difference he makes. Ringrose makes when he comes into the side.
Yeah,
he was absent for a few of the matches in the Six Nations, but when he comes back in, especially when he came back in,
everything looked so much sharper and more creative.
To the quarters and semi-final, it just looks so much slicker when he's there.
Yeah,
and he marshals the defence so well. And he's not that big a bloke. Like, he's kind of tall, rangy, but he's not, very broad or muscular kind of guy.
No, but he hits hard.
He does, yeah.
I would not have very little worries about him in defence, and everybody knows it's a cliche at this stage that it's very difficult to you have a lot of space to defend at 13, and you kind of marshal the defence. All their other outside backs get their line off you. The guys coming into the line from full back or the wingers have to get their line from you, and if you leave a gap or leave a space, it's difficult. You have a lot of ground to cover defending at 13, so hopefully he'll be doing a lot of attacking at 13 rather than defending. But like give those guys a sniff, and especially if they've got James Lowe or Larmour to release the ball to. I think we've got potential for cracking them open.
What was our back three in the semi-final? Was it Dave Carney on the wing and Larmour at full back?
Against Toulouse? No,
it was Rob Kearney.
Was it Rob Kearney?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Rob Kearney and it was
Rob Kearney and
Larmour was on the other wing.
And Lowe. Yeah, it's they're talking about an unchanged 15, which I think is the back three. So yeah,
it's funny, even like we're talking about how their players mirror one, how both teams' players. You've got Kiwi versus Kiwi on the one wing. You've got two obsessive compulsive psychopaths at 10. You've got Alex Good and Rob Kearney, both at full back, both who are superb readers of the game, superb kickers, probably underrated in their own country as players. And then you've got Williams against and then from 12, 13 and 14 you've got 12 you've got a difference, although both are kind of, Williams has been siding through teams, so is Jordan Larmour in fairness. I think it's 12 and 13 is where the real difference is, and I think that's the potential unique selling point of this Leinster win.
Yeah.
So do they have any
potential Leinster win, Dave?
Do they have any weaknesses?
They don't have the creativity, as Dave has just said. They don't have the creativity at the centre as we do. I don't believe they're solid as the BJs is in defence in the centres. But Barrett is a very committed player. He's a little bit of a blunderbuss. He's a bit of a one-trick pony in attack. He goes up and he's fearless, and
he performs that trick so well.
He performs it extremely well, but the ball is not going to arrive out to 13 in the way it might out of Robbie Henshaw. Not that it's not going to get there, but it's not.
I don't know if he's the kicking option that Henshaw is either.
That's very true as well. So you're relying on Farrell for a lot of stuff. It's going to be intriguing. Farrell and Sexton is worth the price of admission alone. Like the two of them are. Obviously, Johnny's older, and your man is still. He started so young though. He was playing international rugby when he was an under-20. He was starting for England when he was an under-20.
He made his debut for Saracens on the same team as
his dad. Yeah. It's crazy.
Well, his dad had him at 15 and a half, so.
But he's been around for such a long time, and he's such a good player. He really, really is. It's going to be. I mean, do Saracens have any weaknesses? I mean, yeah, they do. They have weaknesses. They have strengths that could be seen as weaknesses, the same way as we have strengths that could be seen as weaknesses. For example, we say Billy Vunipola, right? An amazing, powerful carrier of the ball.
We don't have a Billy Vunipola.
We don't have a Billy Vunipola.
The closest thing we've got is Sean O'Brien.
But Billy Vunipola doesn't have the kind of footwork and the ability to get onto a soft shoulder the way that, say, Jack Conan does. Yeah. And he doesn't have that split-second acceleration, although he's quick when he gets going.
And he's got good hands too.
And he's got good hands, but so every player that they have that might have a weakness, we have a player that might have a similar.
They're very different players.
They're very different players. What I'm saying is, what could be seen as a strength in one way can be seen as a weakness for their player, and the same for ours. I mean, Jack Conan isn't going to run through a wall the way that Billy Vunipola can. He can't do that. So you've got different things. I mean, the second row is very evenly matched as well. Obviously, we've got last year's next Martin Johnson against this year's next Martin Johnson. In Itoje versus Ryan, which is going to be a huge battle.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Yeah. I take ours. I take our pair.
Yeah.
Who's starting for them? Cruz.
Cruz, I presume.
I take Toner and Ryan over Itoje and Cruz.
So not going to be
hugely now.
Who's going to be our reserve second?
Fardy is going to come forward from 6.
Top around.
Yeah, I'd say so.
I think that could be a little bit of a weakness for us having to do that.
Don't think so.
Not bringing on a fresh. Fardy's 33, 34.
You're bringing on a fresh 6.
A
fresh 6, and he's gone up there for a rest. Unless there's a shitload of scrums, it's going to be.
I mean, unless they bring on their reserve second row on the 75th minute, he's going to be knackered after 5 minutes.
And who's to say that Ryan and Towner don't play 80? They both have engines on them that they could do that, and in fact so does Vardy.
Mm-hmm.
All three of them have engines.
So does
and so the Toji definitely does.
Yeah. So it's super.
They
super
do have.
balanced.
There's one big area of advantage. Big Willie Skelton didn't get.
That is not an advantage.
Didn't get
That is not an advantage. He's
that guy.
rubbish.
He's not rubbish. That guy coming on late in the game against tired bodies. Okay, he's not.
The cult of the big lad lives.
Okay, try to defend it. You go out there and try and defend it after you run around for 70 minutes, Dave. You get a line out close to the line with that lad in it, and you know, when we're all tired, I just think
he'll be tired before you.
There's one thing that I've noticed about Saracens is that they aren't afraid to take their points.
Yeah,
like they will win games by going 3, 6, 9, 12, and then it's kind of when they get to 15.
They start scoring tries.
When they start scoring tries, only because the other team are
chasing the game
and there's gaps.
Yeah,
we don't tend to do that. We generally go for the corner. We don't. We're not as methodical about it. We will, try and score with flair at it. Like this season for alone, say we've scored 95 tries in the Pro 14.
And that's because it's a shit league and doesn't have
enough,
relegation.
Fair enough, but like Sarri scored 75. So while it's still quite a high number of tries, even compared to, I think it was Glasgow were on 81 tries. So it wasn't that far behind, say, the second placed.
But we were miles ahead, and we just turned off the taps as soon as we had our home.
Absolutely.
I also think that Saracens have realised, particularly in Europe, that if you win every match you play by 1 point without scoring a single try, you'll finish the season as European champions.
That's very true, Dave.
And that for them, with their single-mindedness and their Borg-like intensity, at the end of the day,
is that beyond Borg?
No, it's not.
That's why
it's a science fiction reference, Jason.
Okay, I don't watch that, but I was just thinking of Beyond Borg.
No,
be
a
quite
popular
like
science
that.
fiction program called Star Trek. But
don't know it.
I wouldn't say.
Well, Captain Kirk, I remember, but not.
But with their single-mindedness, they don't care. I mean, it's not going to say on the trophy when Saracens' name is etched into it. It's not going to say, but they didn't score any tries. They don't care. All they want to do is win, and that's why they do, as you say, that they go out there and they build their leads, and then when they get their lead, they bloody well hold on to it. That's what makes them such a difficult team. But at the other hand, when we go for those corners in the 39th minute of the match, and we're really super switched on, and maybe the other team are kind of thinking about, will I have a Rabina or a Maiwadi at half time, and we go for those tries. How often have we done it?
Saracens won't be thinking of that.
That's what you might think, but that's what they taught in the year before last. We caught them.
Jamie George versus Sean Cronin or James Tracy. There's another interesting. Jamie George is a cracking player.
Yeah,
I have to say.
There was rumours that it would be Byrne ahead of Brian Byrne ahead of Tracy. I don't know whether now, but
no, I think the rumour is that Brian Byrne will be in if Cronin doesn't make it.
Okay.
And Tracy will be starting.
Right.
So that's, I think, what's going on there.
But if Brian Byrne is on, then we're at least guaranteed one try.
There's an outside chance that Sean Cronin ain't going to make it. He's still got.
They're giving him again. Lancaster yesterday.
Tomorrow's
was definitely giving him every second that he possibly could to get it right.
They said it early in the week about a couple of players. I think Ruddock as well.
I think he said we're going to give him till Thursday.
Till Thursday, exactly. So
yeah, they're not going to take any risks. They're not going to take any chance of them not being available.
We've heard previous coaches more or less saying, well, if he doesn't train on Monday, that's it.
Yeah.
Curtains.
Oh, this is finals rugby.
Depends on the situation. Really does.
It's going to be. It's going to be a cracking final. It mightn't be one for the casual viewer looking to see balls splayed around the ground, but it's going to be a massively intense physical game. I mean, somebody there asked for who was it now? Rugby Spotlight asked what would our scoreline prediction would be. He's going with 26-15. I think it'll be closer than that. I think 4 points either way will do it.
Yeah, it's hard to know. If you're putting me on the spot, I'll give it a hopeful 19-12, something like that for Leinster. But I'll take 6-5. I'll take 3-0. I'll take anything. Although I'd say I probably need some kind of psychological counselling if it's that tight for 80 minutes afterwards. But anyway,
I mean,
I'll take the win.
I think intellectually speaking, it's too close to call.
It was very tight last year. It was very hard watching the stands.
Into the sphere of emotion and heart and hope and belief, and from what I've seen of this Leinster team over the last 3 years, in fairness, you got to believe in them. You got to believe in them. You got to, when you see them, particularly in Bilbao last year, you got to think that this team has what it takes. There's an almost Kloppian drive to succeed.
But like if you think back, say 2 years ago against Clermont in Lyon, that they
we must mention before we finish. Clermont,
yeah.
They're playing on Friday night.
You going?
I am.
The least successful team in the history of European rugby.
3 finals, 3 losses.
And how much money spent?
God knows.
But back then the team wasn't good enough. We came up short that day. And I think it was a rallying call for the club and the players that they kind of realised
we've lost 2 semis. Who do we think we are?
But how can they improve, and what do they need to do? They have to be better. They have to get better, and that's what they've done. They weren't happy to rest on their laurels, and they saw. I suppose it was a wake up call to a lot of those guys. They said, "Okay, we've got to a semi final after a pretty disappointing season the year before, in 2016." 2017
didn't get out of the group.
2017 then they got to the semi-final, and that might have been seen as a successful season by some clubs, but like they realised there and then that it wasn't good enough. If they wanted to improve, if they wanted to win it, they had to improve. That's what they did last season, and they've continued on. So I think it's only going to be a couple of points in it.
I didn't feel good, I have to say, before I saw the game against Toulouse. After the game against Ulster on our league form,
you have little faith.
I was going, Jesus, it's going to be 2 semis again this year. But now that I think we got great. We can take great heart from the Toulouse game. I know we were at home and all that, but we really did the business that day, and we came with a lot of players that came in cold into the game. We're going to have to do it again because a lot of those players haven't played since.
I'd almost take more heart from the Ulster game, because that was a match. It was
we had to win
a local derby. We didn't play well, but we still had the wherewithal, be it mental or physical, to get over the line. And I think you go back to those games and to those moments when you're in trouble in a big match more than you do maybe the more successful games, because you know that you have that heart, you know that you have that belief. And I think those games, it's like I always say, like we didn't win the Heineken Cup in 2009 by beating Munster. We won by beating Quins. By doing something we hadn't done before and winning a game that we previously couldn't, that kind of game that we couldn't win. There's lots of really good signifiers, but I'm sure Saracens have them too.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a cracking final. It really, really is. Maybe more for the purist and the casual viewer, but it's going to be a cracking final.
How much do I win if I put money on 1912 when it happens?
I have no idea. I don't understand betting at all.
Me neither.
My family are from Cavan. We don't do that.
I'm not going to bother. So, we
do have one question actually. That's kind of unrelated to.
Is it about Clermont?
No. Do you want to talk about Clermont, John? Do you want to talk about the least successful club in the history of European rugby?
Yeah.
They're kind of wearing their colours there.
They're the only team. Well, I'll be wearing my jersey from 2013 that says
Clermont for the day.
Clermont for the day and Leinster for the rest of my life. So I have that in French and everything on my jersey. So I go along and I support them for the crack. They're nice fans. They're a good bit of fun. It'll be a good day out. There'll be no pressure on us.
Since we won our first European Cup, they've spent nearly $500 million on winning nothing.
Yeah, well, hold on.
Top 14.
Joe Schmidt won a top 14 in 2010 and the start of his great haul of trophies that he hasn't stopped yet.
$500 million
on one Brennus. Yeah, there is no other team that's there's one other team that's lost 3 European finals, and that's Leicester, but at least they won 2. Clermont are the only other team that's lost 3, and they haven't.
At least they've got to the final. Like I always find that such a harsh criticism to say, "Oh, look at they've lost 3 or they've lost 2." They're getting to finals.
They got there.
Like, no one really gives the Ulsters or the Exeters or any of these much criticism. Like, they've never got to one. Or
Ulster got to 42 million a year.
Ulster got to
maybe
got to 2 finals.
2, lost 1.
And lost 1.
No, but my point being, though, that, like, you know, let's say Gloucester should be slagged off from the rooftops. They've spent a fortune as well.
But you know, oh, absolutely. You hold the ladder, I'll get up onto that rooftop to slag off Gloucester. But
why? Because they've got 6 towers.
I just don't like the narrative of the plucky underdog. That Claremont is this plucky underdog who somehow have been brung low by a woman or whatever, you know.
Nobody thinks that, I don't think.
It's certainly the narrative.
That's not, because it's just...
They spend more money than Toulon.
But it's nothing to do with that. It's the fact that we've played them a lot, and I suppose there's a relationship built up with a lot of their fans. I just think that people who've been there, I've never been there now, but I know a good few of my friends have, and they've had fantastic trips.
Well, it is a good trip.
What I don't like is the people will accuse the likes of Toulon or maybe even Toulouse of, you know, trying to buy success, and then they never make that same accusation about Claremont. I don't have a problem with Claremont, but I think they should be regarded the same as all those top French rugby clubs. They are huge money making.
And do you not think like Leinster try and buy success?
I think they do, but I think we spend a lot less, and we're obviously better at it.
But they still pay the salaries of all of the players that play for them. They pay for the salaries of the coaches.
The professional rugby budget for all of Irish rugby is less than Claremont's.
If they spend €1, they're still paying for
I'm not
trying to
that's not the point I'm making. The point I'm making is that we somehow think that a team like Toulon is somehow grubby or dirty, because they spend money.
Once the game went professional, the rugby become.
You're making
grubby.
my point.
I know, but I agree. I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah,
I don't think many people have this idea. I don't know where you.
I think if you look at the perception of Toulon versus the perception of Claremont in Leinster fans' minds.
But that's because they don't have a relationship with the Toulon fans.
Well, I have to say, right, as you said, Jason, it's a good trip. When you go over there and you see that their fans are marching in the street with a banner that says, "Welcome to our Irish friends," in Irish. Some guy has gone to the trouble of finding out what's "Welcome to our Irish friends" in their own language. Most of the fucking Irish people there didn't know what it said, probably. But these guys went and did it.
I couldn't agree more with you, John.
They're a massive share of lads.
I remember standing outside
ladies.
the Beggar's Bush, and I don't know, maybe 1,000 or 500 or 1,000 or whatever of their fans walked down the street, and all the people in the Beggar's Bush started applauding them. I just think it's that relationship.
Yeah, that's what it's about.
There's other sports that they try throwing the glasses or bottles at them from the pub.
And that's all well and good, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the way that people perceive certain clubs in different ways that don't really hold up to
they perceive that club because of the ambassadorial element that their supporters have given.
And that's a fair point. Their fans are certainly fine ambassadors for their clubs.
Yep.
But at the end of the day,
I've nothing against La Rochelle, but you know, they spend an absolute gansy load of money as well.
So do their fans, though. They've sold the largest number of jerseys, and
that's right. And it's a small club town.
Yeah.
You'd have to kind of admire them for that as well.
We've one question anyway. So, do you think Claremont will beat?
I think Claremont possibly will beat La Rochelle. La Rochelle are clinging on by their fingernails to 6th place, and
I think they might have other things on their mind.
Claremont are safe in 2nd as far as I know, although they've probably got about 10 games left in their season, so God knows.
Yeah, they don't finish until next October, about 3 months after the new season started. Here's a question not to do with this season, though. Gary Wynne asks, in what position do Leinster need to sign new players in the off-season?
Well, Mick Dawson has already come out and said Leinster aren't signing any new players.
Say that, yeah.
We've got Cian Keller coming back from Galway, and we've got a gansy load of promotions from the academy, and that's it. We're
keeping Fardy for another year.
Yeah.
So
we've got Fardy low, and presume Gibson Park's been signed. I haven't heard any official confirmation because he had a 3-year contract, which is finishing.
It's up in
so
June.
I'm presuming
they normally just release them all in one big batch, don't they?
They do, yes.
I'm presuming you would have heard rumours he was off if he was going to be off. So I want to see him re-signed.
Especially after once they got rid of, or Nick McCarthy's left, or been allowed to leave.
And we're not going to be allowed to sign that Munster lad.
Exactly. Maybe that's why Leo was after him. Maybe we are going to lose Gibson Park. No, I don't think we are. Yeah, well, I'd say the only signing we'll be doing for next season is a possible injury joker if there's a massive injuries in one position. Otherwise, it's keep the old academy. Keep making sure that nobody in St. Michael's slips in the shower.
It is great that they give the opportunity to develop the youth, isn't it? And that they put their faith and trust in them, that they bring them through. Like we saw, Munster don't tend to be doing that. If there's a dislike, or it certainly seems that the coach has taken a dislike to some players and he doesn't pick them, and then they're jettisoned at the end of the contract.
I was trying to think, when I saw that tweet coming through, I was trying to think, where would I like, even just injury cover for it, well, not even injury cover, but temporary cover for the Six Nations. For the World Cup, yeah. And I was trying to think, who do we have, who might be away, and then I was kind of going over who's in the academy and stuff. We don't actually need, unless we have some.
Well, there's rumours that the two Carneys are leaving, isn't it?
One of them maybe.
Yeah, but they didn't get the leaving goodbye shaky handies at the.
That's because the deals haven't been done yet.
So, that didn't happen.
Rob Kearney has said that he wants to stay, and we discussed it last week. The only thing that will make him go is the lack of a good deal in Leinster.
Multi-year deal.
Or maybe the offer of a multi-year deal elsewhere and none in Leinster.
So I mean, but the Carney's. Sorry, the number 15 position I think is the one that's most vulnerable in terms of, will Hugh O'Keenan be around? Jimmy O'Brien did well there against Ulster.
Very well.
Frawley is
James Lowe has played a lot of fullback.
So there are options there. It's the most, but you look at the rest. Even if Sexton's off the World Cup, we say Ross Byrne doesn't go, goes down injured. You look at the guys in the academy. You've got Frawley, then you've got Harry Byrne. You've got Hawkshaw's.
Cropped.
Still going to be cropped, but there's guys there, so I don't think, I genuinely don't think we need anyone. I mean, and the guys we do have, the young guys, have still got a year of getting better, which will improve the squad. Because the way, if you're not moving forward, you're going backwards. And I think by developing young players, we're moving forward without even having to sign anyone.
What you need at the top end of Europe, though, is depth.
You do.
And, you really do. You need your 23 to be.
But we've seen that with our, we thought, we've got loads of surplus in the back row, and there's guys that decided to leave to get game time. They would have certainly got plenty of game time in Leinster if they decided to stay. But one thing that just struck me there when you're saying it is, say during the World Cup, those. Just say you decide to go out and sign a big name player, an overseas player that would have played at the World Cup, they wouldn't be getting back till November. Plus the fact that they'd have had the World Cup, that they'd be exhausted and knackered, so they probably wouldn't be coming into the, probably have to give them nearly December off and come back in January. So you'd only be getting half a season out of them.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that.
So if you're going to make a big signing, if Fardy goes at the end of next season.
That's when to do it.
That's when to do it.
Yeah.
And then you've got James Lowe is no longer considered a foreigner. He's qualified.
Yeah.
Well, already after the next 2 or possibly 3 games, if we win next week against Munster, his little conundrum with the 3 Irish players will be over.
Yeah.
From the very word go next season, there will not be a 3-2 problem. It's finished. So I'm sure him, Fardy, and Gibson Park are only thrilled about that, and obviously Leinster fans in general.
It'll be interesting to see what happens actually, 12 months down the line when Fardy is going.
And Tamani might be going, because he certainly hasn't set the world on fire, shall I say.
Just in terms of Fardy, because you've got guys like Ryan Baird, who's already made his debut.
Dunn,
who's already made his debut, and then you've got, what's his name?
Charlie Ryan
in the under-20s. So, we were talking a while ago about, when Hines left, it took one of the greatest players in the world in the history of rugby to replace him, because he was such a good player for us. And you're thinking about Fardy, and Fardy's kind of similar. I mean, it's going to take a hell of a player to replace what Scott Fardy brings to the thing. But I don't know if we'll go down that route and get an immediate replacement, because I think we will have another year. Yeah, we'll have another year of development under those guys, and you never know. It mightn't even be needed.
Yeah. All right, boys, as ever, thanks a million. Thanks very much for watching, and if you are travelling over to Newcastle,
buys a pint.
Oh, just before we go, can I just say there's that thing on Saturday in the Sandymount Hotel.
You get kickbacks for this.
No, I'm not. No. Hashtag not an ad. That's been organised kind of, if you like, by the blogging community, for want of a better phrase. So it's got big screens, there's barbecue, there's drink concessions. So go along, if you can't go to Newcastle and you're at a loose end, go along there, you'll find yourself in convivial company.
Ooh. Very good. And listen, if you're travelling over to Newcastle, have a safe trip. Cheers.
Advice,